you running your finance function like a small town, local business, or a professional corporation? Are you spending all your precious time just getting through your task list, or are you really setting your team up for growth and success? Hi, my name is Alysha Randall, and I am a fractional CFO for startups and scale-ups, and I also train new and aspiring finance directors or CFOs in this space. And today I wanted to talk to you about professionalizing your finance function and moving from that small local business to a slick, automated, value-adding company. So there's 4 questions or 4 areas that I want to go through today. The first one is spending time fighting fires, ticking off a to-do list that never ends. Does your team own any processes? Are you still spending time tinkering in Excel? And are the reports you send to the internal team reflect a subset of financial statements where no one asks any questions or engages with the report, or do they really start conversations? So starting with the first one, spending time fighting fires and ticking off the to-do list. This is very typical in a startup or scale-up, particularly because there are often no processes or policies, or rather very few processes and policies that are in place. It's also the nature of a startup or scale up because the business is trying things out and pivoting regularly. So what may have been useful and essential 3 months ago may no longer be the case. And often things are put in place very quickly. So for example, the CEO might say, okay, we have been looking at this particular marketing channel. We've done enough research, let's turn it on tomorrow. And then the finance function, obviously being the support function, will need to respond and allow for that. So when you have a low amount of resources as far as headcount is concerned, that can often fall on you as a finance leader or aspiring finance leader. And you have to do things so quickly that you find you're using Excel quite heavily, or you'll find that you're doing tasks that are really manual and don't actually help you grow. It just kind of adds to the workload, adds to the task list, adds. So what you need to do as a new or aspiring finance leader is take a look at all of the processes on a regular basis and work out which ones are still essential and therefore you need to keep, which ones aren't that urgent, and potentially you could find out from your business partners around the business if it's required or not. And then some of them are not, absolutely aren't used at all, and you can strike them off the list and stop doing them. When you've got a list of things that you need to do, ideally then you want to spend the time of how to improve the current way of doing it. And even if you've asked this question before, it doesn't hurt to keep asking that question on a regular basis. Few reasons is because the business may have started using a software that they haven't used before, particularly in a startup or scale up. So say, for example, in a startup, all of your KPIs were in a KPI tracker that were on Google Sheets. And now there's a proper dashboard, and you're using a reporting tool like Tableau or Looker, and therefore the reporting that you can get is slicker. With that additional software or with that additional business process, you can improve the processes you have within finance. Another way that it can be changed is also software that you can get directly within finance. So I've talked about the finance tech stack that we use with our clients or recommend using with our clients. And I'll leave a link to that above and below. So if you want to have a look at things that you can automate, this is a good place to start. Not only that, it's also looking at how you work across departments. Sometimes you may find that the finance function and the operations function or the commercial function may be duplicating some tasks. So if you can eliminate some of those, that is also another way of making the process slicker and therefore easier to maintain the workload. If you're looking at your current task list and think, how on earth am I going to be able to do that? What I always say to students that I work with is take a look at your calendar, work out which week is your slowest week, and being in finance, that's usually the last week of the month after payroll. And then set aside either a whole day if you can, or at least half a day, or if that struggles, at least 2 hours that is recurring every single month. So if you're looking at your calendar, say at the end of May, because I'm recording this early May 2024. So if you're looking at the end of May, it's still looking a bit chaotic, then start the recurring at the end of June and then stick to it. That's the hard part, obviously, but try and stick to that as much as possible. And if you've blocked it in your diary, it's in, and treat that time as sacred. So then you can start planning and thinking about things at a higher level and hopefully over time improve that current task list. Okay, the next one is, does your team own any processes? And this does kind of work alongside that task list. But what I have found sometimes when working with new leaders is they do have a more junior accountant, but they have never actually given them ownership on a whole process. And they also own all of the business partnerships. And as your company gets bigger, this can be quite a lot. So having a look at what you currently spend a lot of time on, what they spend a lot of time on is step one, and improving those processes and automating where you can. And then once you've done that, you can look at what you could potentially hand over to your member of your team. So sometimes it's worthwhile having a chat with them and finding out what their career goals are. So if they want to move into fp&a, or if they want to become a finance director, then you can kind of work with that and train them on the job so that they've got that end goal in mind. They're more likely to take on more tasks if they can see that longer term vision. So for example, you could say to somebody who is very keen on doing fp&a that once month end is finished, can they please update the live model with the actuals as a starting point, as for an example. And then that will take that off you, give them some training, and then they will be more likely to take that so that they can learn a bit more about fp&a. Number 3 is, are you still spending time tinkering in Excel? So I will say, and I confessed this on the the finance tech stack video, that I still do tinker in Excel as far as budgets and scenario testing is concerned. A caveat to that is the clients that I work with are very small, and so they do not have £1,000 budget a month to spend on a budgeting tool. However, if the company that you does, then I would highly recommend having a look at moving away from Excel and looking at these different softwares. The other thing worth thinking about is all the other elements that you do spend a lot of time in Excel. One of them is management accounts. I still see a lot of management accounts coming through in Excel. However, I find that particularly with consolidation, it is such a waste of time to do consolidation in Excel, and it is so prone to human errors that it's just not worthwhile. So if you're still consolidating in Excel, move to a software like the ones that I recommend in the video below. There is obviously Excel and Google Sheets does have a place, you know, sometimes doing a back of the envelope scenario, you know, feel free to go to Excel. But anything that you're doing regularly every single month, like reporting, overhead reporting, board packs, all of these things, try and move away from Excel as well. It'll also streamline the way the business receives information from you. It's much more professional looking, it's easier to do, and actually you can create the reports that the business needs. And then finally, are the reports you're sending to the internal team reflect a subset of the financial statements and no one asks any questions? What I mean by that is, are you sending, say, a board pack, for example, that just has reams and reams and reams and reams of numbers? And the numbers are a detailed P&L, a relatively detailed balance sheet, and a cash flow, and that's about it. And you send these slides that have a lot of numbers on them, either to the leadership team or the board pack. Nobody ever says anything after you've sent it out. It just kind of goes into a black hole and you tick it off the list and job done. Actually, if that is the way that you're doing things, then I would highly recommend that you look at both simplifying these reports, but also changing them quite considerably. So I do go through this in a lot of detail in my Upgrade Your Management Accounts course, which I'll link below. But at a high level, you want a report that starts conversations. You want people to ask questions, not questions such as, do they question the validity of the numbers and they potentially don't trust them, but rather, why do you think that this is happening? How do you view the end of year forecast? Is this going to change the forecast dramatically? These kind of commercial conversations is what you really want your financial reporting to drive. So if you're sending a board pack, for example, that gives obviously a summary of the financial statements, you can't get away with that, and often the shareholder agreement stipulates it, but also giving some trend analysis or some charts or some, KPIs that change every single month. Obviously, the more detail you would give for internal report receivers, and definitely have a conversation with the founder on what you want to present to the board. But ultimately, you want to change it up every single month rather than just having the same slides where the numbers just move because the month moves. So really think about showcasing your value, showcasing your leadership skills, your analytical skills, and your strategic skills by what reports go to the board and the C-suite. They're the decision makers in the business. You get the opportunity to showcase your skills every single month. And are you putting your best foot forward? Or are you just churning out reams and reams of numbers that may look good, but doesn't add any value because you're not starting any conversations? Anyway, they're my thoughts for today. And I hope you find that really useful. As I said, I do a lot of training for finance directors and CFOs in startups or scale-ups. So if that is interesting to you, please click on the links below or subscribe to this channel. I'll chat to you next week. Cheers.